The crisp morning air of September 23, 2019, hung heavy with autumn's promise over the streets of Alexandria, Virginia. Lieutenant General Marcus Richardson, a towering figure at 6'2" with distinguished gray peppered throughout his precisely maintained military cut, prepared for what should have been a routine drive from his home on Seminary Ridge to the Pentagon. At 54 years old, Richardson's face bore the weathered determination of a man who had dedicated over 3 decades to military service, including 4 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and most recently, serving as the Deputy Commander of U.S. Central Command. The Richardson household stood quiet that morning. His wife, Dr. Catherine Richardson, Chief of Trauma Surgery at Innova Alexandria Hospital, had already departed for an early morning procedure. Their 3 children: Marcus Jr., 24, a first lieutenant stationed at Fort Bragg; Michelle, 21, a pre-law student at Howard University; and James, 17, a senior at Episcopal High School, were all away, leaving the general alone with his thoughts as he prepared for another day of service. Officer Bradley Cooper of the Alexandria Police Department began his shift that morning with the weight of personal demons clouding his judgment. At 36 years old, Cooper's 12 years on the force had been marked by a growing pattern of aggressive behavior, particularly toward minority civilians. His personnel file contained 5 formal complaints about excessive force and racial profiling, though Internal Affairs had dismissed each one, leaving Cooper's record technically clean, but his reputation amongst minority communities increasingly tarnished. That morning, Cooper's personal life lay in shambles. His wife had served him divorce papers the previous week, citing his increasing anger issues and inability to control his temper. His mandatory counseling sessions, ordered after his latest civilian complaint, were going poorly. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the department psychologist, had noted in her confidential reports growing concerns about Cooper's ability to separate his personal frustrations from his professional duties. The intersection of these 2 lives, the decorated general and the troubled officer, began at precisely 7:15 a.m. at the corner of Seminary Road and North Howard Street. General Richardson's black Mercedes S-Class, a car chosen more for its safety features than its luxury status, caught Cooper's attention immediately. Despite the vehicle's Department of Defense parking sticker and the general's crisp military uniform clearly visible through the windshield, Cooper's prejudices overwhelmed his professional judgment. Following the Mercedes without probable cause, Cooper's patrol car maintained an aggressive distance for several blocks. The dash camera would later reveal that General Richardson operated his vehicle flawlessly, maintaining proper speed, using turn signals appropriately, and following all traffic regulations to the letter. Yet, as the vehicles approached the intersection of King Street and North Washington Street, in the heart of Old Town Alexandria, Cooper activated his lights and siren. The ensuing events would shake not only Alexandria but the entire nation's conscience. Security cameras from surrounding businesses, civilian smartphones, and police recording devices would capture every moment of what was about to unfold, providing irrefutable evidence of an incident that would spark nationwide outrage and demands for police reform. General Richardson, drawing upon 34 years of military discipline and protocol, executed a textbook response to the traffic stop. He activated his right turn signal, carefully pulled to the curb in front of the historic Carlisle House, and placed both hands visible on the steering wheel. His military training had prepared him for combat zones across the globe, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to transpire on the streets of his own community. Cooper approached the Mercedes with his hand already resting on his weapon, a detail that would later draw severe criticism from law enforcement experts and civil rights advocates alike. His body camera footage revealed an aggressive stance and hostile demeanor that violated multiple department protocols for routine traffic stops. The morning sun glinted off the general's stars on his uniform through the car window. But Cooper, either through willful ignorance or blind prejudice, failed to register the significance of his target's military rank. What happened in the next 6 minutes would become the subject of countless news reports, social media discussions, and eventually congressional hearings on police reform. Cooper, without stating any reason for the stop, immediately demanded General Richardson exit the vehicle. The general, maintaining his composure, attempted to calmly inquire about the reason for the stop while keeping his hands clearly visible. Cooper's response, captured clearly on his body camera, would later be played repeatedly on national news networks as an example of systemic racism in law enforcement. The situation escalated rapidly as Cooper, interpreting the general's calm inquiry as non-compliance, forcibly opened the car door. The next moments unfolded in slow motion for the growing crowd of morning commuters and local business owners who had stopped to witness the scene. Cooper, with a display of excessive force that would later be condemned by law enforcement experts nationwide, grabbed the decorated military officer and physically dragged him from the vehicle. The Richardson family's response demonstrated remarkable dignity under pressure. Dr. Catherine Richardson, speaking briefly to reporters outside Inova Alexandria Hospital, focused on the broader implications rather than personal grievance. Their children's reactions added another dimension to the story. Marcus Jr., still in uniform at Fort Bragg, provided a powerful statement about serving a country where even decorated military officers faced racial profiling. Within the Alexandria Police Department, the impact resembled a bomb detonation. Chief Sullivan's position became increasingly untenable as evidence of systematic failures in oversight and training came to light. Internal affairs investigators, led by Captain Sarah Chen, uncovered a pattern of similar incidents that had been systematically downplayed or ignored. Officer Cooper's personal and professional unraveling accelerated. His ex-wife, speaking anonymously to local news station WJLA, revealed a history of racist comments and concerning behavior that had contributed to their divorce. Former colleagues began distancing themselves, while current officers worried about the impact on public trust in law enforcement. The incident's ripple effects reached well beyond Alexandria. Police departments across the country began reviewing their training protocols and bias screening procedures. The International Association of Chiefs of Police, IACP, issued emergency guidance on traffic stop procedures involving military personnel. Police academies scrambled to incorporate the incident into their training materials as an example of how quickly poor judgment could escalate into a national crisis. Civil rights attorneys from across the nation descended on Alexandria. Benjamin Crump, the renowned civil rights lawyer, announced his intention to represent General Richardson in any legal proceedings. The legal implications extended beyond individual liability to question the broader systems that had allowed Officer Cooper's prejudices to go unchecked. The business community along King Street, initially worried about the impact on tourism, united in support of reform measures. The Old Town Business Association, led by Sarah Chen, no relation to the internal affairs captain, organized a campaign to display "Stand Against Racism" signs in shop windows. Local restaurants began offering free meals to peaceful protesters, transforming the area into a hub of community activism. Military veterans organizations played a crucial role in maintaining pressure for change. The American Legion's local post commander, retired Colonel James Wilson, organized a silent protest where veterans in uniform stood at attention outside police headquarters for 24 hours straight. The image of decorated veterans standing in solidarity with General Richardson powerfully illustrated the division between military and law enforcement cultures in handling racial issues. Dr. Catherine Richardson received news of the incident during pre-operative preparations at Inova Alexandria Hospital. Her immediate response, captured on hospital security cameras, showed remarkable composure as she calmly handed off her surgical duties to a colleague before rushing to the scene. Her arrival, still dressed in surgical scrubs, added another powerful dimension to the unfolding drama. The Alexandria Police Department's initial response proved woefully inadequate. Chief Michael Sullivan's first press statement, delivered at 9:30 a.m. from police headquarters on Wheeler Avenue, attempted to characterize the incident as a regrettable misunderstanding. This tepid response would later be criticized as tone-deaf and indicative of the systemic problems within law enforcement leadership. Meanwhile, the Pentagon's reaction was swift and forceful. Secretary of Defense Robert Anderson, upon being briefed about the incident, immediately contacted Governor James Mitchell of Virginia. Their conversation, later detailed in official records, set in motion a series of high-level discussions about police reform and military-civilian relations. The incident's impact rippled through Alexandria's diverse communities with stunning speed. By noon, protesters had begun gathering outside police headquarters. The crowd included military veterans, civil rights activists, and local residents, all united in their demand for immediate action. The presence of uniformed service members among the protesters created particularly powerful imagery that would dominate evening news broadcasts. Local business owners along King Street, many of whom had witnessed the incident, began sharing their security camera footage with media outlets and civil rights organizations. The multiple angles of video evidence made it impossible for anyone to dispute the egregious nature of Officer Cooper's actions. The Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, led by President Sarah O'Malley, released a statement condemning the incident and calling for a complete overhaul of police training and accountability measures. Inside the Alexandria Police Department, the internal response reflected growing panic among leadership. Internal Affairs Division Chief Robert Chen initiated an immediate investigation while simultaneously dealing with an unprecedented volume of media inquiries and public records requests. The department's Public Information Office, overwhelmed by the situation, struggled to craft appropriate responses to the rapidly evolving crisis. Officer Cooper, following department protocol, was immediately placed on administrative leave. His union representative, Michael Davidson, found himself in the uncomfortable position of trying to defend actions that appeared indefensible on video. The Alexandria Police Benevolent Association's usual tactics of deflecting criticism and questioning narrative accuracy fell flat in the face of overwhelming visual evidence. The psychological impact on both men became immediately apparent. General Richardson, despite his decades of handling high-pressure situations, showed visible signs of stress during his initial statement to internal affairs investigators. Dr. Marcus Webb, the military's chief psychiatric consultant at Walter Reed Medical Center, would later testify about the unique trauma experienced by high-ranking officers subjected to racial profiling. Cooper's psychological state deteriorated rapidly. Department psychologist Dr. Sarah Martinez noted clear signs of anxiety and depression during their mandatory session that afternoon. His personnel file, later made public through Freedom of Information Act requests, revealed a history of concerning behavior that had been consistently overlooked by supervisors. By sunset on that fateful September day, the incident had exploded into a national controversy. Major news networks dispatched teams to Alexandria, transforming the quiet streets of Old Town into a media circus. CNN's Anderson Cooper broadcast live from Market Square, with the historic City Hall serving as a poignant backdrop to his coverage of what was quickly becoming America's latest racial flashpoint. The video footage, now viral across all social media platforms, painted an undeniable picture of racial profiling. Security camera footage from the Carlisle House Historic Park provided a particularly damning wide-angle view of the incident. Technology experts from Georgetown University's Digital Forensics Lab confirmed the authenticity of all videos, effectively shutting down any attempts to question their validity. The Pentagon's response intensified as evening approached. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Michael Hayes called an emergency press conference at the Pentagon briefing room. His statement, delivered with barely contained fury, emphasized the military's zero tolerance for racial discrimination and demanded immediate accountability. The sight of the military's highest-ranking officer, himself an African American, speaking about the incident lent additional gravity to the situation. Alexandria's Mayor Patricia Rodriguez convened an emergency city council meeting at 7 p.m. The historic council chamber at City Hall overflowed with concerned citizens, community leaders, and media representatives. The meeting, scheduled for 2 hours, stretched well past midnight as speaker after speaker demanded concrete action rather than mere promises of reform. National civil rights organizations mobilized with remarkable speed. The NAACP's Alexandria branch president, Dr. James Marshall, coordinated with state and national leadership to organize a response. By nightfall, the Reverend William Parker, a prominent civil rights leader from Atlanta, had arrived to lead a candlelight vigil outside the police headquarters on Wheeler Avenue. Alexandria's business community played a crucial role in supporting reforms. The Chamber of Commerce, led by Sarah O'Malley, established a fund to support police community relations initiatives. Local businesses participated in a new program, bringing officers and community members together for regular dialogue sessions. 1 year after the incident, Alexandria had transformed into a national model for police reform and community reconciliation. The Richardson Center for Police Community Relations, established in a renovated historic building on Cameron Street, became a hub for innovative programs addressing systemic racism in law enforcement. The center, funded by General Richardson's settlement and additional corporate donations, hosted training sessions, community dialogues, and research initiatives. Dr. Catherine Richardson's influence extended beyond her role as the general's wife. Her medical expertise contributed to new protocols for evaluating stress-induced trauma in police encounters. The Richardson Protocol, adopted by hospitals across Virginia, provided standardized procedures for treating victims of police misconduct, while documenting evidence for potential legal proceedings. The Alexandria Police Department underwent radical restructuring. Chief Walm's leadership emphasized transparency and accountability. The department's new headquarters, relocated to a more accessible location on Eisenhower Avenue, featured a community engagement center where citizens could freely interact with department leadership and access public records. The building's design, with its glass-walled lobby and community meeting spaces, symbolized the new era of openness. Officer Cooper's imprisonment became a cautionary tale in police academies nationwide. His case study, developed by criminal justice professors at George Mason University, detailed the progression from unchecked bias to criminal misconduct. Cooper himself, showing signs of genuine reformation, began participating in prison programs addressing racial bias and advocating for police reform. The Richardson Act's implementation reshaped law enforcement throughout Virginia. Mandatory psychological screenings revealed concerning patterns of bias in multiple departments, leading to additional reforms and personnel changes. The Act's civilian oversight provisions created new channels for community input in police operations and policy development. Military-police relations evolved significantly. The Pentagon established the Joint Committee on Service Member Protection, headed by General Hayes, to monitor law enforcement interactions with military personnel. The committee's quarterly reports provided crucial data for ongoing reform efforts and policy adjustments. Alexandria's religious community emerged as a unifying force. The historic Alfred Street Baptist Church, led by Reverend Howard Matthews, hosted interfaith prayer services that attracted thousands. The sight of religious leaders from various faiths standing together in support of justice provided hope amid the tension and anger. Educational institutions responded with programming aimed at addressing systemic racism. Alexandria City Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Maria Hernandez implemented immediate changes to the district's curriculum regarding law enforcement and civil rights. Local universities offered public lectures and forums examining the historical context of police-minority relations. The legal proceedings began in earnest at the Alexandria Circuit Court on King Street, under the watchful eye of Judge Maria Hernandez. The courthouse, a stately building dating back to 1817, became the epicenter of a national debate about police accountability and racial justice. Security measures intensified as protesters and media representatives gathered daily outside the historic structure. Commonwealth's attorney Patricia Anderson presented a devastating case against Officer Cooper. The charges included assault and battery, civil rights violations, and official misconduct. The prosecution's evidence, meticulously assembled over weeks of investigation, included enhanced video footage, expert testimony, and Cooper's troubling historical pattern of discriminatory behavior. Cooper's defense team, led by attorney Michael Stevenson from the Police Benevolent Association, struggled to mount an effective response. Their initial strategy of claiming reasonable suspicion for the traffic stop crumbled under the weight of video evidence. Stevenson's attempts to portray Cooper as a dedicated officer who who made a single mistake rang hollow against the backdrop of his documented history. Expert witnesses provided damning testimony about police practices. Dr. James Wilson, a renowned criminologist from Georgetown University, analyzed Cooper's body camera footage frame by frame, identifying 43 separate violations of accepted police procedure during the 9-minute encounter. His testimony highlighted the systemic nature of the failures that led to the incident. The civil suit, filed by Benjamin Crump on behalf of General Richardson, named not only Cooper, but also the city of Alexandria and the police department's command structure. The lawsuit detailed institutional failures in training, supervision, and accountability that had allowed Cooper's prejudices to go unchecked. The potential financial liability forced city officials to consider fundamental changes in police department operations. The Virginia state legislature, spurred by public outrage, began drafting the Richardson Act. This comprehensive police reform bill, shepherded through committee by Senator Diana Martinez, proposed mandatory psychological screening for officers, enhanced bias training requirements, and civilian oversight boards for all law enforcement agencies in the state. Inside the Alexandria Police Department, the impact of the legal proceedings triggered unprecedented changes. Chief Sullivan, facing mounting pressure, announced his early retirement. His replacement, Chief Victoria Wong, became the department's first Asian American female leader, symbolizing a commitment to diversity in leadership positions. The department's training division underwent complete restructuring. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, promoted to oversee the new Office of Professional Responsibility, implemented mandatory monthly bias recognition training for all officers. The program, developed in consultation with civil rights experts and military leadership trainers, became a model for departments nationwide. Financial implications for the city proved substantial. The City Council, led by Chairman Robert Martinez, approved a $15 million settlement with General Richardson, who announced his intention to use the funds to establish a foundation promoting police reform and community relations. The settlement terms included mandatory changes in department policies and procedures. Officer Cooper's criminal trial captured national attention. The proceedings, broadcast live on major networks, provided a stark examination of how implicit bias could corrupt law enforcement judgment. Cooper's testimony, marked by apparent remorse, nevertheless revealed deep-seated prejudices that had influenced his actions throughout his career. The verdict, delivered after 6 days of deliberation, found Cooper guilty on all counts. Judge Hernandez's sentencing statement emphasized the breach of public trust inherent in Cooper's actions. His sentence of 5 years in state prison, though less than the maximum possible, sent a clear message about accountability for law enforcement misconduct. Civil rights organizations celebrated the verdict as a watershed moment. The NAACP's Alexandria chapter, under Dr. James Marshall's leadership, used the momentum to push for broader reforms in police hiring, training, and oversight throughout Northern Virginia. Their efforts led to the creation of a regional police oversight commission with real enforcement power. The military community's response to the verdict demonstrated unprecedented unity. General Hayes, speaking from the Pentagon, praised the outcome as a step toward addressing systemic racism in law enforcement. The Department of Defense implemented new protocols for military personnel interactions with civilian law enforcement, including clear identification requirements and emergency reporting procedures. The military's relationship with civilian law enforcement evolved significantly. The Department of Defense established new protocols for service member identification and interaction with police, implemented nationwide through agreements with state and local law enforcement agencies. These protocols, known as the Richardson Rules, significantly reduced incidents of bias against military personnel of color. Education about the incident reached international audiences. Documentary filmmakers from the BBC, Al Jazeera, and other global networks produced in-depth examinations of Alexandria's transformation. These productions helped spread awareness of effective police reform strategies to communities worldwide struggling with similar issues. The legal framework established by the Richardson Act influenced legislation in other states. By now, 27 states had adopted similar comprehensive police reform measures. The federal government incorporated key elements of the act into national police reform initiatives, creating standardized requirements for law enforcement agencies nationwide. Former Police Chief Michael Sullivan's public acknowledgement of his department's failures marked a crucial moment in police leadership culture. His testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Law Enforcement Reform provided powerful evidence for the need for systemic change. His subsequent book, Breaking the Blue Wall: A Police Chief's Journey to Accountability, became influential in law enforcement leadership circles. The incident's impact on police recruitment and training proved revolutionary. The Alexandria Police Department's reformed hiring processes, emphasizing psychological screening and cultural competency, became a national standard. Their training programs, incorporating virtual reality simulations of bias-related scenarios, helped officers recognize and counter their own prejudices. Technology played an increasingly crucial role in preventing similar incidents. The Richardson Alert System, developed by MIT engineers in collaboration with civil rights organizations, used artificial intelligence to identify patterns of potentially biased police behavior before they escalated into serious incidents. The system's implementation in major cities showed promising results in reducing discriminatory policing. The business community's sustained involvement demonstrated the economic benefits of social justice initiatives. The Alexandria Chamber of Commerce's annual report showed increased tourism and business investment following the city's reforms. Their success inspired other communities to view police reform as an economic opportunity rather than a burden. Local businesses continued supporting community healing. The King Street Merchants Association initiated Unity Walks, monthly events bringing together police officers, community members, and local business owners. These gatherings, starting at Market Square and proceeding through Old Town, became celebrations of diversity and progress rather than protests. Alexandria's educational system incorporated lessons from the incident. The city's public schools developed a comprehensive curriculum addressing civil rights, police relations, and systemic racism. The program, praised by education experts nationwide, helped students understand both historical context and contemporary challenges in police-community relations. The media's role evolved from sensation to substance. Local journalists, led by the Alexandria Times, established a dedicated section tracking reform implementation and community response. Their coverage, focusing on measurable changes rather than rhetoric, kept pressure on officials to maintain momentum for reform. Religious institutions sustained their commitment to healing. The Interfaith Council, representing diverse religious communities, organized regular dialogue sessions between police officers and congregation members. These meetings, rotating among different houses of worship, helped build understanding across cultural and racial divides. General Richardson's military career continued with added purpose. His experience informed new military policies regarding service member interactions with civilian law enforcement. His speeches at service academies and military installations emphasized the ongoing challenge of racial bias and the importance of maintaining dignity under pressure. The incident's impact on police union culture proved significant. The Alexandria Police Benevolent Association, under new leadership, shifted focus from unconditional defense of officers to promoting professional excellence and accountability. Their revised collective bargaining agreement included provisions for expedited removal of officers showing bias or misconduct. Technology played an increasing role in reform implementation. The department adopted advanced body camera systems with automatic activation and cloud backup. A new civilian-accessible database tracked officer interactions, complaints, and resolutions, providing unprecedented transparency in police operations. 2 years after the incident, Alexandria hosted the National Conference on Police Reform and Community Relations. The event, drawing law enforcement leaders, civil rights activists, and community organizers from across the country, showcased the city's transformation from crisis to model community. Tourism in Alexandria adapted to include education about social justice. Walking tours now included stops at significant locations from the incident, including the spot where General Richardson was detained. Tour guides incorporated discussions of police reform and community response into their narratives about the city's history. The Richardson family's influence continued growing. Their children became advocates for police reform and racial justice. Marcus Jr., promoted to captain, developed training programs for military police incorporating lessons from his father's experience. Michelle, now in law school, focused on civil rights law and police accountability. 3 years after the incident, its impact continued reverberating through American society. The transformation extended far beyond Alexandria's city limits, influencing police departments, military institutions, and communities nationwide. The Richardson effect, as sociologists termed it, demonstrated how a single incident could catalyze genuine systemic change when handled with accountability and determination. Officer Bradley Cooper's journey took an unexpected turn during his incarceration at the Sussex II State Prison. After serving 2 years of his 5-year sentence, he emerged as an unlikely advocate for police reform. His written memoir, Badge of Prejudice, A Former Officer's Reckoning with Racism, became required reading in police academies across the country. The book's unflinching examination of his own biases and their devastating consequences provided valuable insights into the mindset that enabled police misconduct. The Richardson Center expanded its scope beyond police reform. With satellite offices opening in Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, the organization developed comprehensive programs addressing various aspects of systemic racism. Their annual budget of $50 million, funded through a combination of the original settlement, corporate donations, and federal grants, supported initiatives ranging from youth education to law enforcement training. Dr. Catherine Richardson's medical research yielded groundbreaking results. Her long-term study on the physiological impacts of racial profiling, conducted through Inova Alexandria Hospital, provided scientific evidence of the health consequences of discriminatory policing. The study's findings influenced healthcare policies and legal strategies in civil rights cases nationwide. Alexandria's transformation became a case study in effective community renewal. Urban planning students from Harvard, Yale, and MIT conducted extensive research on how the city's response to crisis created opportunities for positive change. The Alexandria model of police reform appeared in academic journals and policy papers, analyzing how crisis response could lead to lasting institutional change. The media's coverage evolved from sensationalism to substantive analysis. The incident sparked a nationwide conversation about responsible reporting on police-community relations. Journalism schools developed specialized courses in covering racial justice and law enforcement accountability. General Richardson's personal legacy transcended the incident itself. His dignity in the face of discrimination, combined with his leadership in promoting positive change, earned him numerous humanitarian awards. His autobiography, Stars and Scars: A General's Fight for Justice, became a bestseller and inspired countless readers to engage in social justice work. The incident's impact on American society proved deep and lasting. It demonstrated how a moment of crisis, handled with wisdom and determination, could catalyze positive change. The transformation of Alexandria from the site of a traumatic incident to a beacon of progress offered hope to communities nationwide struggling with similar challenges. As the sun set on the 5th anniversary symposium, the gathered leaders reflected on the journey from crisis to transformation. The Richardson incident, though born of tragedy, had become a testament to the possibility of genuine systemic change. It showed that with commitment, courage, and community engagement, even the most deeply rooted problems could be addressed and overcome. The legacy of that September morning continued to shape American society, reminding future generations that change was possible and that justice, though sometimes delayed, could be achieved through persistent, dedicated effort. The story of General Richardson, Officer Cooper, and the city of Alexandria became more than a cautionary tale. It became a blueprint for transformation, a testament to resilience, and a beacon of hope for communities across the globe. Religious institutions maintained their role in community healing. The Interfaith Police Community Relations Council, established in the wake of the incident, expanded to include representatives from 30 different faith traditions. Their regular meetings and joint community service projects helped maintain dialogue between law enforcement and diverse community groups. General Richardson's legacy extended beyond police reform. His experience became a cornerstone of military leadership training, emphasizing the importance of maintaining dignity and professionalism in the face of discrimination. His annual lecture at West Point, Leadership Under Fire, Maintaining Dignity in the Face of Discrimination, inspired new generations of military leaders. The impact on youth proved particularly significant. The Richardson Youth Leadership Academy, established in partnership with Alexandria City Public Schools, provided mentorship and leadership training to minority students interested in careers in law enforcement or military service. The program's success in building bridges between young people and authority figures attracted national attention and funding. 5 years after the incident, on a crisp autumn morning, mirroring the day of the original encounter, Alexandria hosted a national symposium on police reform at the newly constructed Richardson Memorial Hall. The building, situated symbolically at the intersection where the incident occurred, served as a permanent reminder of both tragedy and transformation. The symposium brought together an unprecedented gathering of minds. Police chiefs from 50 major cities, civil rights leaders, military commanders, and community organizers convened to assess the lasting impact of what had become known as the Richardson moment. The data presented revealed stunning statistics. Police brutality complaints had decreased by 67% in departments that had fully implemented the Richardson Protocol. Officer Cooper's post-release work continued to evolve. Now a full-time consultant for police reform initiatives, his perspective provided unique insights into the psychology of biased policing. His regular speaking engagements at police academies across the country, though initially controversial, proved invaluable in helping cadets understand how unconscious bias could corrupt their judgment. The Richardson family's influence expanded into new areas. Dr. Catherine Richardson's research led to the establishment of the National Center for Police Community Health Studies, a groundbreaking institution combining medical research with social justice initiatives. Their eldest son, Marcus Jr., now a colonel, implemented revolutionary diversity training programs throughout military bases nationwide. Alexandria's transformation extended beyond policing. The city became a model of community police integration, with officers regularly participating in neighborhood events, local schools, and community service projects. The police department's demographic composition shifted to better reflect the community, with minority representation increasing from 15% to 45% over 5 years. The legal framework established by the incident continued evolving. The Supreme Court cited the Richardson case in 3 major decisions regarding police accountability and civil rights. These rulings strengthened protections against discriminatory policing and established clearer guidelines for law enforcement conduct. International interest in the Alexandria model grew steadily. Delegations from countries across Europe, Asia, and Africa visited to study the city's approach to police reform. The United Nations Human Rights Council recognized Alexandria's transformation as a global best practice in addressing systemic racism in law enforcement. The economic impact proved substantial and sustainable. Alexandria's reputation as a leader in social justice and community policing attracted progressive businesses and organizations. Property values increased while crime rates decreased, creating a virtuous cycle of community investment and improvement. Technology's role in preventing discrimination advanced significantly. The Richardson Alert System, now implemented in over 200 police departments nationwide, used sophisticated algorithms to identify potentially problematic officer behavior patterns. The system's success in preventing incidents of bias-based policing earned recognition from both law enforcement and civil rights organizations. Educational institutions incorporated lasting changes. The Richardson curriculum, teaching students about civil rights, police relations, and community engagement, spread to school districts across the country. Universities developed specialized programs in police-community relations, creating a new generation of informed law enforcement leaders. The military's approach to civilian interaction underwent permanent transformation. The Richardson rules became standard operating procedure for service members' interactions with law enforcement. The Department of Defense established permanent liaison offices with major police departments, facilitating better communication and understanding. Religious institutions maintained their crucial role in community healing. The Interfaith Police Community Relations Council expanded nationally, with chapters in over 100 cities. Their work in building bridges between law enforcement and diverse communities received presidential recognition. The media's coverage evolved from sensationalism to substantive analysis. The incident sparked a nationwide conversation about responsible reporting on police-community relations. Journalism schools developed specialized courses in covering racial justice and law enforcement accountability. General Richardson's personal legacy transcended the incident itself. His dignity in the face of discrimination, combined with his leadership in promoting positive change, earned him numerous humanitarian awards. His autobiography, Stars and Scars: A General's Fight for Justice, became a bestseller and inspired countless readers to engage in social justice work. The incident's impact on American society proved deep and lasting. It demonstrated how a moment of crisis, handled with wisdom and determination, could catalyze positive change. The transformation of Alexandria from the site of a traumatic incident to a beacon of progress offered hope to communities nationwide struggling with similar challenges. As the sun set on the 5th anniversary symposium, the gathered leaders reflected on the journey from crisis to transformation. The Richardson incident, though born of tragedy, had become a testament to the possibility of genuine systemic change. It showed that with commitment, courage, and community engagement, even the most deeply rooted problems could be addressed and overcome. The legacy of that September morning continued to shape American society, reminding future generations that change was possible, and that justice, though sometimes delayed, could be achieved through persistent, dedicated effort. The story of General Richardson, Officer Cooper, and the city of Alexandria became more than a cautionary tale. It became a blueprint for transformation, a testament to resilience, and a beacon of hope for communities across the globe.